Today, the movie I'm going to explain is a Malayalam masterpiece drama thriller. The movie's name is Udal. It is based on a shocking true story of an extramarital affair. However, the film contains several 18 scenes. If that doesn't bother you, you can sit down and enjoy watching it. It's an extraordinary masterpiece that will leave your mind blown. So let's take a sneak peek and begin the movie. Begins with a girl named Saini clicking a picture of a sanitary napkin and sending it to a boy named Kiran. She tells him, "Look, I swear I'm on my period." Hearing this, Kiran, a bit disappointed, replies, "Oh no, then we can't do anything for a few days." Saini responds, "Nothing can be done, you'll just have to be patient for a few days." Kiran teasingly replies, "If I endure all this and come to you one day, a rape case will be filed at the nearby police station." Hearing this, Saini smiles and says, "Come, we'll see who handles it better." Based on this exchange, you can imagine what kind of conversations might follow. I'll skip over those. After their chat, Kiran asks, "What's Nunapan up to?" Saini replies, "He's probably playing in the yard then." As Saini looks out the window, the scene shifts to the house's yard. Yes, this is Nunapan, Saini's only son, and the man with him is Kirti Chan. He is Nunapan's grandfather, meaning Saini's father-in-law. The man chatting with Kirti Chan is a poor villager named Joy. Joy does small chores for the family in exchange for money. At the back of the house, a pipe releases menstrual cloth soaked in waste, and its stench drives Nunapan away. Joy, noticing the smell, tells Kirti Chan, "Uncle, this is really smelly. Doesn't it bother you?" Kirti Chan replies, "Everything depends on love. When there's love, nothing ever seems disgusting." Now the question arises, who is this waste coming from inside the house? The scene shifts inside the house, where we see an elderly woman lying on a bed, almost lifeless. The waste belongs to her. She is Kirti Chan's wife, meaning Saini's mother-in-law. This grandmother has been bedridden due to old age for the past 4 years. The girl cleaning the grandmother's waste and applying powder to her body is Rani, the housemaid. Cleaning the grandmother daily is a troublesome task, which Saini struggles to manage alone. Therefore, Rani is compelled to do this along with her other chores. The scene shifts to the kitchen, where Saini is on the phone with Kiran. When Kiran says something flirtatious, Saini blushes and says, "Go away. I'm busy making tea. We'll talk later." Then, when Kiran asks for a goodbye kiss, Saini quickly glances around to ensure no one is watching and gives a quick air kiss, turning red with embarrassment. Rani, carrying a bucket of the grandmother's waste-soaked cloth, comes outside and tells Saini, "I've left these here. Please dispose of them." Saini replies, "Burn them before you leave." Hearing this, Rani, annoyed, says, "You should hire a home nurse. I can't do this anymore." Holding her breath to avoid the stench, Rani reluctantly burns the waste and leaves. Kirti Chan then enters his wife's room, sits beside her bed, takes a deep breath, and says, "Ah, the fragrance of the powder on your body is so lovely." Hearing this, the grandmother looks emotionally at Kirti Chan. He teasingly says, "Don't look at me like that. I might climb onto your bed, and it won't hold up." When the grandmother tries to say something, Kirti Chan understands and says, "No, your son didn't come home this week. But don't worry, he'll surely take leave from work and visit you next week." Saying this, Kirti Chan, overwhelmed with emotion, kisses his wife's hand and comforts her. The scene shifts back to Saini. She calls Kiran and says, "Hang up now, I'm going to take a bath." The mention of a bath ignites Kiran's romantic side, and he says, "Darling, can you please video call me in the bathroom? Please, 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 please." When Saini scolds him, Kiran replies, "I'm dying to get just one glimpse of your sari. Please, please." Saini, with a mischievous smile, says, "All right, but just one quick glance." Hearing this, Kiran is ecstatic. The scene shifts to the bathroom. We see Saini, wrapped in a towel, video calling Kiran and striking various poses, driving him completely crazy. So, Kiran Bai went angrily and said, "Please open the gate." At that moment, Saini, in a romantic mood, kissed the phone screen, smiled slightly, and abruptly hung up the call. The next day, I saw the housemaid Rani telling Saini that she would no longer work in the house because she was tired of cleaning up feces and urine every day. Hearing this from the next room, Kirti Chan felt deeply hurt and helplessly looked at his bedridden wife. When Rani was leaving with her salary, Saini started explaining how and when to clean the grandmother and which medicines to give her at specific times. Listening to this, Saini got slightly annoyed and said, "You've only been here for 3 months, but before you came, I used to do all of this myself. Hearing this, Ronnie said nothing further, took her money, and quietly left. Meanwhile, Joy was outside chatting about something. Saini caught a chicken, locked it in a cage, and said to Joy, "Joy, I've caught a chicken. Come and slaughter it. There's nothing else to cook today." However, Joy avoided slaughtering the chicken, making an excuse to attend to other work. Frustrated and worried about what to cook, Saini started cursing Joy. In the next scene, with Ronnie gone, Kirti Chand and Saini together started cleaning the grandmother. Saini, struggling with the bad smell, reluctantly tried to clean her. Meanwhile, Kirti Chand lovingly and carefully cleaned her body. Seeing this, the grandmother gazed at her husband Kirti Chand with deep affection. Kirti Chand kept cleaning his wife, but Saini, overwhelmed by the stench, said, "Dad, you finish cleaning. I'll go put these clothes in the bathroom." Saying this, she took the clothes and Dettol to the bathroom. Kirti Chand then lovingly said to his wife, "Let's apply some powder to your face to enhance your beauty." He gently began applying powder to her face. Meanwhile, Saini left the bathroom after pouring Dettol on the clothes and said, "Dad, I'm going to cook. I'll clean the clothes later." After cooking, she then left. We then see Kirti Chand lovingly applying powder to his wife's face, embracing her with deep affection and enjoying the fragrance of the powder. Tears started rolling down his wife's eyes. Kirti Chand then began cleaning the clothes himself instead of leaving them for Saini. Meanwhile, Saini was cooking meat in the kitchen. Just as she was about to transfer the cooked meat into a bowl, she caught a whiff of the foul smell from her body and the bathroom. This made her nauseous, and she vomited. She composed herself and resumed cooking, but the experience ruined her appetite for rice or curry. So she served rice to her father-in-law and said, "Dad, you eat. I'll have some bread and water later." Saying this, Saini went to her room, locked the door, sprayed perfume on herself, and started eating a piece of bread. During this time, Kiran called her, and Saini narrated all these incidents to him. Hearing this, Kiran tried to console her, but Saini, frustrated, said, "I can't do this anymore. If we can't enjoy life as we wish, what's the point?" Hearing this, Kiran fell silent. The next day, Saini left to take her son to his grandparents' house. A little while after leaving, Kiran called her, and she said, "I'm dropping my son off at his grandparents' house. He'll stay there for 4 to 5 days. Hearing this, Kiran joyfully said, "Then we can meet peacefully for these 5 days. Also, your husband isn't coming home anytime soon." But here's the twist: Kiran is not Saini's husband. Saini's husband's name is Rajib. He has a big job in the city and lives there due to work. He left Saini in the village to take care of his ailing mother. Taking advantage of this situation, Saini has been in a relationship with Kiran, a local boy, for the past 6 to 7 months. From their phone conversations, it's clear that their love has deepened in a short time. In the next scene, we see a group of boys hanging out on a village road. One boy, wearing a black t-shirt, is called Kanga. Another, wearing a white shirt, is called Kiju. The third, wearing a blue t-shirt, is named Samad. When Kiran arrives, Kiju jokingly says, "Hey, we don't see you around much these days. What do you do locked in your room all day?" In the meantime, Saini, while leaving her son at her father's house, honked loudly upon seeing Kiran. Kanga commented, "Who did you see to honk so loudly?" Kiran replied, "Oh no, it's my habit here, maybe that's why I honked." At this point, Kanga remarked, "Whatever the reason, the person is undeniably gorgeous from the side." Kiju quipped, "Of course you'd say that because you were the watchman." Kanga then said, "Yes, obviously. My police friend Xavier used to visit the village during holidays, and every night he would enter her room." Hearing this, Samad glanced at Kiran, as Samad knew about Kiran and Saini's relationship. Still, when Samad didn't believe Kanga's words, Kanga insisted, "Brother, I'm telling the truth. I personally escorted Xavier every night. He used to enter Saini's room, and I kept watch outside, but Kiran knew that Saini loved him madly, so he dismissed it as untrue." Then Kanga added, "Believe me, Xavier would sneak in through the house's ventilator, spend the night, and leave through the same way in the morning." Hearing this nonsensical talk, Kiran became furious, but Samad calmed him down and took him away. Afterward, Kanga said to Kiju, "How was that?" Kiju replied, "You nailed it, bro." As they continued on their way, Kiran confided to Samad, "Brother, you know how much Saini loves me. For the past 6 or 7 months, I've spent time with her as a husband and wife. You personally dropped me off at her place at night. Still, that scoundrel tried to provoke and anger me for no reason. And you know, I lose my temper if anyone speaks ill of Saini." Samad replied, "Forget it, man." That night, when Saini was supposed to come, we see Samad and Kiran waiting somewhere for something. At that moment, Saini called Kiran, and Samad accompanied him towards Saini's house. They stopped in front of Saini's house, and Kiran asked Samad to stay there as he quietly approached Saini's house. Saini had left the gate open for Kiran, so he entered the house and, in the dark, stealthily headed towards Saini's room. Upon entering her room and locking the door, he pulled Saini close and said, "It's been so long since I've seen my sweet little bird. To tease him, Saini replied, "You've been doing just fine without seeing me hearing this." Kiran felt disheartened, but he brushed it off and began getting closer to Saini. Just then, Saini stepped outside the room for a while. When she returned, she saw Kiran holding her tightly and asking, "What's wrong, my sweet bird? Why are you upset? Why can't I see the old Saini in you anymore?" Saini dismissed the matter, saying, "I'm still the same old Saini." Hearing this, Kiran playfully laid her down and said, "All right then, show me that fierce side of the old Saini." With that, they became intimate. About an hour later, when Saini returned to the room, she seemed cheerful, while Kiran stood by the window, smoking. The stench wafting through the window made Kiran comment, "Wow, this house really stinks." As soon as Shiny thought about the stench, her cheerful mood turned sour. She said to Kiran, as if contemplating something, "Can you save me from this hell?" Hearing this, Kiran was startled. Shiny continued, "I've been suffering like this for 3 to 4 years. Forget about having a satisfying meal, I can't even remember the last time I drank a glass of water with contentment. I don't know how much longer I can endure this suffering." Hearing this, Kiran started wondering what he could possibly do to alleviate Shiny's misery. Just then, Shiny, with a sorrowful tone, said, "Will you stand by me? If you want, you can free me from this suffering today itself." Kiran's throat went dry with fear because he realized Shiny was hinting at killing her grandmother. Terrified, Kiran hesitated, but Shiny reassured him, saying, "Don't worry, nothing will go wrong. She has been bedridden like this for 3 to 4 years. So if she dies tonight, no one will suspect anything. There won't be an autopsy." Despite Shiny's reassurances, Kiran was too scared to get involved in such trouble. Sensing his fear, Shiny moved closer and said, "When you get close to me, do you smell perfume on me or dead?" Kiran fell silent, looking into Shiny's eyes. Soon after, we see Shiny quietly opening the door and leading Kiran towards her grandmother's room. Kiran, petrified, kept glancing around nervously. Shiny opened the door to her grandmother's room and took Kiran inside. Standing in front of her grandmother's bed, Kiran asked Shiny, "How can you even think of doing such a horrible thing?" Ignoring him, Shiny went to the bathroom to get something. Kiran's gaze fell on the grandmother and he was startled. Her expression was soft and hopeful, as though she thought Kiran was her son Rajib, visiting her from the city. Meanwhile, Shiny returned from the bathroom with a towel. Kiran was utterly shocked by Shiny's actions. As Shiny prepared the towel, her grandmother, mistaking Kiran for her son, tried to speak to him. In the meantime, Shiny readied the towel to strangle her grandmother. Left with no choice, Kiran reluctantly assisted Shiny. After the grandmother died, Kiran stood there frozen in fear, unable to believe what had just happened. Shiny left the room quietly and Kiran followed her, terrified, as they walked back to their room. Once inside, Shiny sighed with relief, thinking her suffering had finally ended. However, as she reflected on the crime she had just committed, she began sobbing uncontrollably. Kiran, still paralyzed with fear, was visibly shaken. Seeing this, Shiny held his hand and reassured him, "Don't worry, no one will suspect us. Tomorrow morning I'll cry over my mother's death so convincingly that no one will doubt anything." At this, Kiran hesitantly asked, "Are you sure she's really dead?" Shiny's fear began to creep in as she stammered, "Why would you say that?" Kiran nervously replied, "I just felt like asking." That's all, but doubt had already taken root in Shiny's mind. To confirm the situation, Shiny returned to her grandmother's room, and Kiran followed. Shiny leaned close to her grandmother's face, trying to confirm if she was dead but couldn't be entirely sure. Meanwhile, Kiran was on the verge of collapsing with fear. After checking Saini's grandmother's pulse, Kiran lets out a sigh of relief and says, "Yes, she's dead." Hearing this, Kiran feels a wave of relief wash over him. As they are about to leave, Saini suddenly stops and asks, "Where's the towel?" They start thinking that they might have left the towel they used to hang the grandmother somewhere nearby, but now it's nowhere to be found. They begin searching frantically for the towel around the house but can't find it anywhere. The only other person in the house besides them is Kurti Chan. Could Kurti Chan have taken the towel? Does this mean he knows everything? Fearful of the possibility, Saini quietly approaches Kurti Chan's room. She peeks in and sees him sleeping. Saini lets out a deep sigh of relief, returns to her room, and tells Kiran, "Father is sleeping. He didn't take the towel. It must be somewhere we left it ourselves." Hearing this, Kiran feels his tension ease. Saini also relaxes, lies down on the bed and says, "For the first time in a long while, I feel a strange sense of peace." Saini then lies beside Kiran and gets emotional, saying, "If you weren't here, I wouldn't have been able to free myself from this pain. It's all because of you." Meanwhile, Kiran remains completely silent, overwhelmed with guilt. Noticing this, Saini tries to cheer him up by mischievously asking, "Do you want to see the wild Saini again with that?" She starts kissing him, but Kiran's mood is still off due to his tension. Seeing this, Saini climbs on top of Kiran and begins unbuttoning his shirt. Yet Kiran is still consumed by guilt. Finally, Saini embraces Kiran tightly and starts trying to distract him from his worries. Outside the house, Samad is lying on the ground, watching videos on his phone, waiting for Kiran to come out. After some playful moments, Saini goes to the door with Kiran, planning to send him outside, and says, "Send me a message when you reach home." She lovingly kisses him goodbye, but as Kiran tries to leave, they discover the door is locked. This surprises Saini. Thinking for a moment, she tries to guide Kiran out through a side door, only to find that one locked as well. Both of them are now utterly shocked. When they try another door, they see it's also locked. This realization fills them with dread. Saini then goes to turn on the lights and finds the main switch turned off. Even more alarmingly, someone has removed the fuse. Seeing this, Kiran becomes even more anxious. Saini tries to comfort him, saying, "Don't be scared. It seems your friend Samad is playing a prank on us." At that moment, they heard a noise on the roof of the house. Both of them got startled and nervously started moving toward the roof to see what it was. However, Kiran got scared and ran back, while Shani went toward the roof alone. When Shani opened the roof door and stuck her head out, there was a scene. Hearing Shani scream, Kiran ran toward her, but Kiran was immediately hit on the left knee by a forceful strike. Both of them began to scream in fear, wondering who this person was. They wondered who was attacking them in such a cruel way. Then, they saw blood dripping from a weapon in the darkness. Standing there with the weapon was no one but Kutichan. Actually, Kiran and Shani had already killed their grandmother and moved into another room, but Kutichan had woken up from a nightmare and gone to check on his wife. However, by the time Kutichan got there, Shani and Kiran had already killed their grandmother and were no longer in the vicinity. Kutichan came to his wife and, in mischief, kept calling her baby. But when he saw that his wife wasn't responding, his heart began to break. Upon noticing a piece of cloth wrapped around her neck, Kutichan felt a strong jolt in his chest. He realized that someone had killed his beloved wife, so Kutichan kept calling her baby, and began crying like a child. While crying, Kutichan suddenly heard a sound coming from the adjacent room. He froze and moved toward the source of the noise, hearing Shani speaking to someone, saying, "Don't worry, no one will know that we killed the old woman." Hearing this, Kutichan felt as though he had turned to stone. He entered the room to confirm if the grandmother was dead. As Shani was moving back toward their room, Kutichan hid himself. Quietly sneaking into Shani's room to find out with whom she was speaking, Kutichan found nothing initially. However, upon spotting a condom, he realized that Shani was involved in an affair with someone and had probably collaborated with that person in their actions. On the other side, Shani couldn't find her cloth and went into Kutichan's room. She found Kutichan sleeping and, feeling relieved, left. However, we observe that Kutichan is pretending to sleep while tears stream down his face. While sobbing, Kutichan took out his mobile phone and called his son, Rajib, asking, "Son, are you asleep?" Rajib asked, "Father, you are calling at this hour, any problem?" Kutichan said, "No, son, no problem. I just woke up and thought of you, so I called Rajib." Hearing the trembling fear in his father's voice, asked, "Father, is something wrong?" Kutichan reassured him, "No, son, everything is fine. She is sleeping peacefully." Saying this, Kutichan broke into tears. Rajib asked, "Father, is something wrong?" Kutichan said, "No matter how busy you are, come home in the morning." Rajib agreed and said, "Okay, father, I'll come." sleep now. With that, Rajiv hung up. Crying, Kutichan pulled out a pipe repair tool from under the bed and set it on top of the bed. Then, tying his pajamas properly and picking up the tool, he prepared for action. This resulted in action sequences. Saini struck Shani's head and Kiran's leg with full force. They both ran into the adjacent room to apply bandages to their injuries. Kiran said, "Shani, who is doing this to us?" Shani didn't answer directly but went back into the grandmother's room to investigate. She found no one there but noticed the cloth in the bathroom. When Shani peered into Kutichan's room, she found that Kutichan was no longer there. Her throat went dry, and she hurriedly began searching for the main switch's fuse. Kiran, observing this, asked Shani what happened. Shani explained, "I can't see well, so I'm accustomed to moving through every part of the house with my eyes closed, but it's not us. So in order to save ourselves from him, we have to light the light at any cost." Hearing this, Kiran is surprised and asks, "Whose story are you talking about at this?" Saini says, "My father-in-law has found out everything, and that's why he is doing all this." Hearing this, Kiran's heart sinks, and he says, "I don't want any part of this anymore. Just tell me how to get out of here," Kiran insists. Saini responds, "You can run if you want, but you can't escape the police." Kiran asks, "What do you mean?" Saini explains, "If we keep this old man alive like this, we'll both be trapped." Now Kiran realizes that he is in serious danger. Kiran tries to convince Saini that whatever mistakes have happened have already been done, and they should avoid getting involved in any further murders, because if they kill a mother and father in one night, it would raise suspicions, and they would be caught. Saini says, "Think about it this way. Kurchichan loved his wife very much, but his wife had been bedridden and suffering from illness for a long time. Unable to bear it, Kurchichan killed his wife and then committed suicide to join her in the afterlife." Hearing this, Kiran is astonished. Saini continues, "Look, Kiran, we are stuck in a trap. Now, to get out of here, we have no choice but to kill the old man, but we must do it carefully. He must be killed in such a way that there are no marks of injury or evidence left on his body." Scene: when Kurchichan is seen, he is pulling out one of his wife's clothes from the wardrobe, holding it close to his chest and crying uncontrollably. In his grief, Kurchichan takes the piece of clothing to his wife's side while crying. Meanwhile, Shani and Kiran enter Kurchichan's room to kill him, only to find that Kurchichan is not in the room. However, they notice that a table lamp is glowing. Shani picks up the lamp and begins looking around with its light when suddenly When Shaheen's scream came, Sini Dadi entered the room and saw Kurchin sitting beside his wife's bed like a stone. So Kiran took Saini into the next room and applied ointment to Shaheen's wounded area, causing Saini to cry out in pain. Out of fear, Kiran then said, "Saini, we are not killing him, rather. He is about to kill us." At this point, the scene cuts to another moment. We see Kurchin installing a switch beside his wife's bed and saying, "The housemaid has left, but baby, you don't need to worry at any moment. Whenever you need help, just press this switch. You'll see that I will be right there in front of you instantly." At that moment, we realize why Dottie had been so desperate to press this switch before she died. The scene then shifts to Kurchin staring at the switch in silence, tears streaming down his face. Before long, Kiran and Saini enter Daddy's room and find that Kurchin has changed his wife's clothes and adorned her with new ones. Then, when they go to the house's storage room, they see Kurchin inspecting furniture that was lying there, seemingly making some sort of plan. At that moment, Saini and Kiran spot him, and they begin to cautiously move toward him to attack Kurchin, so that there would be no sound. But as soon as there was a little sound, Kurtichan's expression changed. Without saying a word, he started throwing the coconuts in front of him one by one. Saini and Kiran struggled to protect themselves, angry, and secretly began approaching Kurtichan. Kurtichan then filled a sack with coconuts and started throwing them with great force. After that, he went home and said to Shani, "You have taken my beloved wife." At that moment, Kiran ran and grabbed Kurtichan from behind, and Kurtichan pushed his feet against the wall and said, "Push him." At that instant, the coconut grating machine went back into its place. Hearing Kiran scream, Sini came outside and saw Samad listening to a video with headphones in his own world. When Sini came back inside, she found Kiran had freed himself from Kurtichan's grip and was trying to revive Shani by calling out to her. When Shani came back to her senses, Kiran told her, "Shani, I will never let him go." Sini then came to Kurtichan and found that one of his toenails had come loose in that way. At that moment, they thought that Kurtichan might bandage it and fix it. He tore the nail out in one quick motion, and Sini's flash bent. You remember that one day Shani couldn't find anyone to slaughter the chicken. That day, Kordachan secretly, alone, and in a frightening manner, tore the chicken's throat, and from this, we could understand that Shani and Kiran had absolutely no idea about the circumstances they were caught in. So Kiran was hiding in the dark, looking for Kordachan when suddenly Kordachan came from behind with a weapon. When he raised the weapon to hit, Shani struck him on the head, and Kordachan fell to the ground. Shani, now furious, dragged Kordachan by his leg to grandmother's room and told Kiran, "Bring kerosene, we will burn them both." Kiran then went behind to search for kerosene while Shani dragged Kordachan toward grandmother's room. Kordachan slightly regained consciousness and tried to grip the weapon again, but he fell limp again, and the weapon dropped from his hand. We then observed that Kordachan had no more movement. When Shani dragged him toward the door, Kordachan kicked her. This caused Shani's head to bleed, and she began to scream. Hearing her scream, Kiran rushed with the kerosene toward Shani, while Kordachan had already hidden himself somewhere else. Shani, now furious, said, "Father, wherever you hide, I won't let you go." Saying this, Shani shouted repeatedly, "Kiran, pour the kerosene and burn her." When Kordachan heard this, he trembled. Kiran stood frozen for a moment, and angry at Kiran's hesitation, they said to him, "Why aren't you pouring the kerosene?" Kiran, trembling, poured the kerosene into grandmother's room while Shani shouted repeatedly, "I'll burn your wife." Shani said, "If you love your wife so much, come here." Kordachan came out of his hiding spot helplessly to protect his wife and dropped the weapon from his hand. Shani, seeing this, came up with a mischievous smile and slapped Kordachan hard. Kordachan said nothing, staring at them helplessly with a pitiful look. Then, Shani and Kiran began to beat Kordachan mercilessly. Kordachan remained silent, bearing everything in silence without saying a word. This was the moment when it seemed Kordachan's life was on the brink of being over. Yet, Kordachan didn't make any effort to save himself. The reason was simple: if Kordachan did anything, they would set his wife on fire. So Shani pushed Kordachan against the wall, holding him down, and screamed at Kiran, "Stab him in the stomach with a knife." Hearing this, Kiran suddenly stabbed Kordachan in the stomach and pressed him hard against the wall. As Kordachan began to slip into death, Shani released him and took pleasure in his suffering. Kordachan slowly became weak and lifeless, but suddenly something shifted, and Kordachan turned into a ferocious state. He entered his room and called someone. Meanwhile, Shani searched for Kordachan and came to his room but found that he wasn't there. However, his phone showed a police call incoming. Upon seeing this, Shani grabbed a mark from her hand and went to Kiran, saying, "The old man has called the police. The police will take a maximum of 1 hour to arrive. During this time, we need to do something. But the two of us are not in a position to act right now. Call your friend Samad and bring him inside to help us." Hearing this, Kiran grew tense, unsure about what to do. But looking at Shani's determined expression, Kiran gave in to the pull of trust and love and called Samad. "Brother, I'm trapped inside here. Please come and save me," he said. Hearing this, Samad came running and tried to enter through the house's main door but found that all the doors were locked from the inside. Samad then called Kiran, saying, "Brother, all the doors are closed. I don't know how to get inside." Kiran turned to Shani and asked for advice. Shani replied, "Tell him to climb up the mango tree to the roof and jump in from there." Hearing this, Kiran froze for a moment, and a flashback sequence appeared. The scene depicted Kanga claiming that Shani had a physical relationship with Jebihar from their village. Xavier would climb up the mango tree at Shani's house and jump onto the roof, entering the house through the ventilation on the roof. However, Kiran loved Shani so much and trusted her so deeply that he dismissed all of this as false. Now the scene comes to the present. Meanwhile, Kiran in anger says to Shani, "You sly bitch, where are you? I trusted you so much. And this is how you repay me to this." Shani replies, "Instead of questioning my character, you should focus on how to escape from here." Hearing this, Kiran freezes. Then Samad, climbing through the mango tree, comes inside and is completely shocked to witness their situation. Kiran then reveals everything to Samad, and Samad prepares himself to save his friend. At the same time, we see from a distance that Cody Chan is standing alone, leisurely smoking a bidi, as Samad rushes toward Kernchichan with a knife in his hand from Shani's direction. His foot slips, and his foot gets caught by the weapon. When Kernchichan comes to Samad in a relaxed manner, Samad tries to attack. But Shani is utterly shocked. Shani realizes that Kernchichan has completely transformed into a violent beast because of his wife. Therefore, instead of focusing on killing him, Shani decides that escaping with her life is far more important. Thinking this, She quietly sneaks into the next room and calls a guy named Alex, saying, "Alex, I think someone is trying to break into our house. I heard my father screaming from the next room, so I locked my door in fear. Please come and save me immediately." At that moment, Kieran emerges from behind with a snake-like hiss and stares at Shani. Shani, terrified, approaches Kieran, and Kieran, in a teary voice, says, "You've been deceiving me for months, and yet, I was madly in love with you." Before Shani could reply, Kieran, "It's not what you think." Kieran becomes frenzied and furious, ready to attack Shani. So, the bond of love that brought them together to take Kurnchichan's life has now escalated into chaos as both Kieran and Shani are now fighting each other in a ruthless clash to save themselves. After witnessing this, Kurnchichan smirks silently and leaves the scene. Kieran then grabs Shani by the neck and says, "Sister-in-law, you deceived even your husband. I was ready to commit murder for the sake of your love, and yet you deceived me as well. Sister-in-law, how many men do you need?" Saying this, he crushes Shani's head in his grasp. Kieran then gets up and looks ahead to see Kurnchichan walking away. Angered, Kieran chases after Kurnchichan to kill him but notices Samad lying in that state, which intensifies Kieran's anger even more. Kieran then begins to search for Kurnchichan. Following a trail of Kurnchichan's bloodied footprints, Kieran realizes that Kurnchichan is hiding in a certain room. Kieran opens the door to that room. Eventually, everyone meets their fate. Kurnchichan, from within that place, extracts the main switch fuse from a collar knife and says, "Uncle, this was hidden in such a way that no one could find it." Kurnchichan then steps over Kieran's body lying in front of the gate. After struggling and painfully reconnecting the main switch, the house is illuminated as darkness gives way to light. Inside the house, Kurnchichan looks in a very critical state, making his way toward the main gate with great difficulty. Meanwhile, Shani, lying on the floor, pulls Kurnchichan's legs, retrieving a knife from behind him and begins attacking him. Kurnchichan, using a brass rod beside him, smashes Shani on the head. Kurnchichan continues his shaky and unsteady journey forward, while Shani, with her knife in hand, moves toward him as well. It looks like Shani will land a deadly blow on Kurnchichan, but Kurnchichan makes a desperate effort to climb toward the main switch and, sobbing, manages to pull out the gate key from his mouth. He mutters, "Uncle, where did they hide this key?" Kurnchichan, with great difficulty, manages to unlock the main gate, collapsing in exhaustion. At that moment, the police arrive at the scene. The scene cuts for a while and soon it shows the police extracting everyone from inside the rooms one by one. Kurnchichan's son is surprised when he returns from the city to find all this happening. At this point, as Kurnchichan is being taken away on a stretcher, Rajib calls out. Father Kurnchichan, trembling, says in a weak voice, "Son, take care of your mother." Rajib doesn't understand the full scope of the events at all. Meanwhile, the people lift Kurnchichan into the car. Rajib, filled with curiosity, enters the house and silently observes everything happening in shock and confusion. At the very beginning, I mentioned that this movie is inspired by a true incident from India. Anyway, seeing Kurnchichan's love for his wife, I was both amazed and, in some moments, found tears welling up in my eyes without realizing it. I don't know how you'll feel. If you liked the video, please gift me a like. And hey, listen, I'm just asking for a like, not an iPhone Pro Max, so don't overthink it. Without any drama, just quickly drop a like. Did you? Stay well. And remember, care for your own wife, not someone else's. Take care of yourself too. Bye-bye.